What's up, fellows? I'm Lee, learning filming star Nicki Miladko यो first chapter. A dream comes true. Jesus Christ, the name is so tough to pronounce, and I'm trying to learn, man. A dreams come true. Jago Mona stopped outside the raid. Lars robbed iron gates and hesitated. Now that he was this close to his goal, his courage was beginning to fail him. He peered furtively through the iron bars and stared longing at the stable block just 100 yards away at the other end of the long tree-lined drive. A boy was leaned a horse. A boy was leaned a horse across the yard, and the brightening November wind carried to Jago's ears the sharp ring of onion shoes on the cobble. As the wind whistled through his threadbare tweed jacket, he wrapped it more tightly round his angular body and tried to forget that it was several sizes too big for him. It had been his dad's best coat and was certainly tighter than any of his own clothes. That was why he had worn it on this important occasion. He tried not to think about the woolen sweater he was wearing with a large undrained hole in it and the trousers that flapped around his legs. He could just imagine the jars of the stable boy and the giggle behind his back when he dared to walk into that sportless yard. Recollections of how it had been when the educational authorities had occasionally caused up with him filled his mind. The other children at the various schools he had been forced to attend had always laughed at him and poked fun at his poor clothes. And when they had discovered that he could neither read or write, his life had been made unbearable. He remembered how his dad would take one look at his tear-stained face and, without a word, hitched old Robin up to the only home they knew. And within the hour, they would once more be trotting along behind the horse in this accident. Rotting. Jesus Christ. This is so fucking hard to read, guys. I don't think. Almost 5. 2019. 2021, 22, 23, 24. Almost 5 years. Almost 5 yearsमा मैले बुकै हेरेको थिएन भनेपछि I was just thinking at the time. कतिवटा वर्ड थियो यहाँ. The fuck is that, babe? I'll try to continue. Let's see how it goes. Now, if only he could get a job here, he had to find work. He knew he could not go on traveling on his own. And since horses were the only things he knew much about, he could not think of any places where he would rather settle down. Settle down. The gates clenched. Shut behind him, hunching himself against the numbing wind and rain. Jago heads. Jago heads purposefully up the drive toward the stable. By the time he reached the stable yard, he was shocked through as he stared uncertainly at the forbidding closed door of the stables. He left something like panic rage off inside him. Suddenly get he could not for the life of him remember what the fuck is going on. Suddenly he could not for the life of him remember what he was going to say. But I'm learning, man. It's getting confused for me. He had planned it all out carefully before he came, but now his mind had suddenly gone blank. Same here. Even if he didn't remember who was he going to say it to. Motherfucker, who is watching it? Sorry guys. The ad was desert, although he could hear muffled sound of horse stamping in their stall and someone whistling tunelessly. Come on. Zago stood there, the rainwater dripping off his hair and down the back of his neck miserably, wondering which door he should dare to open. Suddenly, a voice came from behind him and he jumped. You are looking a bit late. Anything I can do for you? Jago spun ran and stared at the little old man, no taller than himself. Apart from a sneaky leather gaiters, the man's clothes were almost as shabby as Jago owns. His trousers were mottled with old and faded stains, and the elbow of his jacket were covered with patch. On his head, hanging loosely over his ears and hiding his wizened, weather-lined face from the view of anyone larger than himself, was an enormous accident cloth cap. Jago's gaze was held by the man's eye, which were on the level with his own. They were as black as midnight, but they had a twinkle in them like that of the brightest star. This courage came this courage came surging back to him. He knew those eyes. They were the same as his own, the same as his father had been, and his fathers before him. They were roaming eyes, the eyes of the true grapes. Suddenly he knew that if this man worked here, he stood a good chance of getting a job. Motherfucker. Oh, I have to go Amazon, guys. Sorry.